Hello dear kids, welcome back to our social science class. The national capital, that is Delhi, is rightly called the very heart of India. Bustling streets, vibrant locals, historic grandeur, modern charm, splendid food items and blissful cultures. Delhi is all this and a lot more. The vividness of this city is such that one needs more than a lifetime to explore it inch by inch. From skyscraping multinational companies, redefining the word modern to colonial era buildings, narrating legendary stories of the past. The contrast seen here is unbelievable. So dear kids, today we will learn more about the beauty of the history of our capital, Delhi. So before moving to the lesson, let's see a look into the mind map of this chapter. Our chapter is the Sultans of Delhi, and in this chapter we will discuss sources of Delhi Sultanate, then the dynasties of Delhi Sultanate, that is 5 dynasties are there: the Slaves, the Khaljis, the Tughlaqs, the Shaids and the Lodhis, and also the Sultanates after the Tughlaqs. So let's go. Delhi was the capital of the Delhi Sultanate in the beginning of the 13th century. So which is the capital of Delhi Sultanate? Delhi. The Sultans of Delhi built many cities in the area that is now known as Delhi. The rule of the Delhi Sultanate can be divided into 5 distinct periods on the basis of dynastic rule. So let's see what are the sources of Delhi Sultanate. Apart from inscriptions, coins and monuments, history in written form called Tariq. Remember, the sources of Delhi Sultanate, the main sources of Delhi Sultanate is Tariq. History in written form called Tariq provides information on the Delhi Sultanate, and it was written in Persian, which was the language of administration under the Delhi Sultans. The official language is Persian. Okay, and these Tariqs, that is the plural form of Tariq, were written by learned men who not only recorded events but also advised the Sultan on governance. Then, however, one has to be careful while studying the history of the Delhi Sultans on the basis of these contemporary sources. Why? Individuals writing under the patronage of a contemporary ruler were making their mostly with matters which did not concern on decisions about what was and what was not. Further, they dealt important, that is general public. These authors wrote histories for the sultans in the hope of rich rewards, or were court historians sponsored by the sultan. So, and therefore more often than not they are uncritical of the state of their rulers. As I said, the Delhi Sultanate or the dynasties were divided into 5 areas, right? So, Delhi Sultanate was ruled by 5 dynasties. Do you know what are they? The first one, the Slaves, between 1206 to 1290 CE, and the second, the Khaljis, between 1290 to 1320 CE. and the third, the Tughlaqs, between 1320 to 1414 CE, and the fourth, the Scythes, that is between 1414 to 1451 CE, and the last, fifth one, the Lodhis, between 1451 to 1526 CE. These are the dynasties, and this is the period. Okay, so let us learn about the first, slave dynasty. See, the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate needed reliable governors and administrators. So, Muhammad Ghori had no sons, so he nurtured slaves called Bandagan in Persian. So, the slaves is known as Bandagan in Persian. So, Muhammad Ghori had no sons so he nurtured slaves like his sons. Then these slaves were placed as governors and later raised to the status of sultans. After Ghori's death in 1206, one of his slaves, Qutbuddin Aibak, laid the foundation of the slave dynasty, which ruled over the subcontinent for about 84 years. So, who is the founder of slave dynasty? Qutbuddin Aibak. Qutbuddin Aibak, Shamsuddin Iltutmish and Ghiyasuddin Balban, the three great sultans of the dynasty, were themselves sold and purchased during their early lives. Then, do you know Turkhan-i-Chehalgani? Turkhan-i-Chehalgani means the most important institution that developed under the slave dynasty. Okay, and it was also called Chalgan or the 40. Chalgans were a group of highly placed and powerful officers whom Iltutmish had organized as his personal supporters. Okay, so Chalgans were the personal supporters of Iltutmish, and when Balgan assumed charge as Sultan, what he did? He crushed their power and strengthened his rule. Then in 1236, Razia, the daughter of Iltutmish, became the Sultan of the Delhi Sultanate. The chronicler of this period, Minhaj Siraj, says that she was more able and qualified than all her brothers. But the nobles in her court uncomfortable at having a lady as a ruler, and therefore differences within the court became the order of the day. Ultimately, Razia Sultan was removed from the throne in 1240 CE. And let's see a garrison town to empire, how it became an empire from a garrison town. See, till the late 13th century, the control of the Sultanate was largely confined to heavily fortified towns with the presence of soldiers known as garrison towns. Very important. Then it would have been extremely difficult for the sultans to adjust to the system of revenue extraction earlier period in these regions. They were new to the territory and came from a different ruling background altogether. Therefore, in the beginning, the major part of the revenue of the Sultanate came from the tribute and the plunder of the territories surrounding the garrison towns. The accession of Balban in around 1265 provided the Sultanate with an iron-willed ruler who aimed at consolidating the hinterlands. What is hinterlands? The area adjacent to a city. And so, the accession of Balban in around 1265 provided the Sultanate with an iron-willed ruler who aimed at consolidating the hinterlands of the garrison towns for constant extraction of revenue and resources. So, under him, huge forest areas were cleared in Ganga, Yamuna, Dow, and these lands were given to the peasants. Many new towns and fortresses were also built to Sultanate the Mukti or the local commanders as the soldiers. When the Sultanate expanded till the south, the Sultan collected revenue from the peasantry, traders, and in some cases tribute was also taken from the local rulers. Then Balban was succeeded by weak rulers, hence the throne of Delhi was taken over by the Khaljis. And let's move to the next, the Khaljis and the Tughlaqs. So the Khaljis, their period was in between 1290 to 1320 CE, and while Tughlaqs were 1320 to 1414 CE. Here you can see the Delhi Sultanate during the reign of Alauddin Khalji. So this is the map. The Khaljis and Tughlaqs continued to use the bandagans or slaves in administrative posts. However, they also placed people of humble birth in high political and military positions and as governors. This dependence of the sultans of Delhi on bandagans and nobles of humble birth also caused political instability. Okay. They tended to remain loyal to their patron sultans and known to their successors. Therefore, the accession of a new sultan often saw conflict between the old and the new nobility. Then the sultans used to appoint military commanders as governors of territories of varying sizes. These lands were called Iqta, and their holders were called Iqtadar or Mukti. So remember, the lands were called Iqta and the holders of that land were called Iqtadar or Mukti. So the duty of the Mukti was to join military campaigns and maintain law and order. So what is the duty of Mukti? It is to join military campaigns and maintain law and order. Then in exchange for their military services to the Sultan, the Muktis were given the authority to collect the revenues of their Iqtas as salary. Then they also paid their soldiers from these revenues. Okay. Then the Khaljis and the Tughlaqs were relied on the Iqta system of administration, but ensured that the office of the Mukti was not hereditary and they were frequently transferred. Then the Muktis were also asked to strictly maintain the required number of soldiers. Then this stopped the Muktis from building social and political connections and becoming powerful. Why? Because they were asked to strictly maintain the required number, not more than. Then these later sultans took utmost care that the Mukti collected on the prescribed taxes and not more than that. Clear? Then for this they appointed accountants who informed the sultans about the amount of revenue collected by these Muktis. So there is no chance for corruption. Okay, then let's see the Khaljis. The rulers of the Khalji dynasty were Jalaluddin Khalji, Alauddin Khalji, and Qutbuddin Mubarak Shah Khalji. Then Alauddin Khalji made an attempt to systematize and unify land revenue and urban taxes. So he instituted a highly centralized system of administration over his realm. Under the early Delhi Sultans, Islamic land tax, that is kharaj, had been fixed at 1/6 of the produce. Okay, so it was fixed at 1/6 of the produce. But Alauddin Khalji raised the kharaj. Under the early Delhi Sultans, Islamic land tax, that is kharaj, had been fixed at 1/6 of the produce. But Alauddin Khalji raised the kharaj to 50% of the produce and introduced direct collection. He also imposed taxes on cattle and houses. Ziauddin Barani, a contemporary chronicler, informs us that revenue collectors were ordered to demand revenue with such rigor that the peasants were forced to sell their standing crops to meet the tax demands. Then tax from the Doab area was spent on paying cash salaries to the soldiers. Then Mongol attacks increased on the Delhi Sultanate during the reign of Alauddin Khalji. This forced him to recruit a very large standing army in Delhi. But this was a huge administrative and economical challenge for him. He took various measures to meet these challenges. The Sultan could not have given iqta to all the soldiers, and therefore he preferred to give them cash salary. The payment to the huge military also meant that Alauddin was able to extract enough revenue. Then Alauddin Khalji also controlled the prices of the commodities, as he had to maintain the large army at a minimum cost. Then he fixed the prices of all commodities from grain to cloth, slaves, cattle, etc. A controller of the market called the Shahnai Mandi and intelligence officers known as Barits were appointed to implement the market control measures. Okay, so we'll move to the next, that is the Tughlaqs. The important rulers of the Tughlaq dynasty included Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Like Alauddin Khalji, Muhammad bin Tughlaq also raised a large standing army. So he led campaigns to Kalanaur and Peshawar aimed at securing the northwestern frontier of the Sultanate against future Mongol attacks. Then even before Muhammad bin Tughlaq's successor, Firoz Shah Tughlaq could consolidate his rule, the Sultanate of Delhi began to disintegrate, largely because of the struggle for power among the nobles. The disintegration of the Delhi Sultanate was completed by Timur, who attacked Delhi and the neighboring areas in 1398 to 99. So let's see at the end of this lesson the Sultanate after the Tughlaqs. After the Tughlaqs, the Sayyid dynasty followed by the Lodi dynasty continued to rule from Delhi and Agra until 1526. But the control of the Delhi Sultans was only over a small region, that is neighboring Delhi, regions like Jaunpur, Bengal, Malwa, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and the entire South India had independent rulers. Okay. then they not only established flourishing states but also enjoyed autonomous existence. What is autonomous existence? Autonomous means possessing the right of self-government. So, please learn the lesson well, go through the videos, take care, bye bye.